I'm now going to talk about this topic, how to take notes. And I'll start first by talking about how to take notes from books, and then afterwards I'll say something about how to take notes from lectures. So first then, notes from books. When you read a book, it's wise to take notes as you read, because you've probably experienced that your mind can wander, and then suddenly you ask yourself, what did I read now the last 10 hours, or what were they about? So if you take notes while you read, then you make sure that that you have consciously read actually what was going on, and you make sure that you have understood what was being said. So that's one advantage, to make sure that you understand what has been said. And another advantage is that if you take notes while you read, it's easier to remember what you have read. And also, when the exam comes, you don't have to start reading the book all over again, but you can find your notes and then read those instead. Some like to use a yellow marker pen or some kind of marker pen to mark important text. And it's okay, it's not very efficient, and at least you have to just use it not too much. Maybe a maximum 10% of each page should be marked with yellow in that case. Because I remember I bought a book which had been used before, and a person had been using a yellow marker pen, and it was more and more on each page, and finally I came to a page where all the text was marked except one word, and it was the word "and." And I guess the student had been thinking that, well, they're not going to ask me about this word in the exam, so I'll skip that one, or something like that. But it's if everything is yellow, then there's no point in marking it out. So it's better to write small notes on the sides of the pages, small summaries, or your critical notes or questions and so on. It's much more helpful to have also when you are repeating, or if you want to write an assignment based on those pages. The best way of taking notes is to make a so-called mind map. You've probably seen those. You make a big bubble in the middle of or at the top of your sheet, and that's where you write the topic that you're taking notes about, for instance, atonement. And then one makes new bubbles for the different main subtopics. So for instance, in this topic, atonement, there are three main theories: the classical, the objective, and the subjective theory of atonement. And what's good about making such a mind map is that it looks like a picture. And most of us can remember pictures much more easily than we remember text. Just imagine if I show you a picture for 1 second and ask you, what did you see? You can probably start talking for a long while about the different... You saw some children playing on the beach with a ball, and there were some houses and everything. But if I show you just a sheet of text for a second, then you've probably only seen the headline. So it's easier to remember pictures. And a mind map also gives you an outline or a structure that you can use when you come to the exam. Either if you're going to write something and you get an assignment on atonement, then you can see this structure right away, and you have an outline for what you're supposed to write, and you can just start writing. And also, if it's an oral exam and you're asked, can you talk about this topic, atonement, again, you see the pictures with the different, and you can just start on the first subtopic and work your way through. So that's an advantage. And people who study this, they say that this way of organizing your notes, it fits better with how knowledge is actually stored in your brain as well. It's the same kind of pattern, so that makes it easier to remember as well. Yet another advantage is that when you get new information, maybe you hear something new in a lecture, or you read something new in some other text, you can add extra. It's easy to put on extra information on a mind map, easier than if you have notes, at least if you have written notes. So that's also an advantage. And you can here add then different colors or different drawings to make it easier to remember. For instance, here one could have made drawings and saying that the classical theory of atonement says that humans are held captive by Satan, but then when Jesus dies on the cross, he conquers Satan and humans have been saved. Whereas in the objective theory, humans are kind of held captive by God, so when Jesus dies on the cross, he can pay the debt to God, and humans are saved or free. And then finally, subjective theory, humans are kind of held captive by themselves. And when Jesus dies on the cross, he shows them that God loves you. You're free. You are not captive. So that's what happens in the atonement. So different drawings like that can make it easier to remember. And also, if you can think of something that's funny and just all sorts of weird, if you're writing about, for instance, utilitarianism, and you want to remember that Bentham and Mill, then you can maybe draw a ham that's been bent and a bag with $1 million, and you have Bentham and Mill, and sort of easy things that makes you remember. It can be stupid, but it's easier to remember it then. Such mind maps you can make for whole books or for the different chapters of the books, and best of it is to do both. Make one mind map for the whole book and one mind map for each chapter that's on your curriculum. And in addition, you can make this for the different learning outcomes, the topics that you're supposed to know stuff about, and you can find old exam assignments and ask yourself, what would I have answered to this question? And then you can make a mind map, because often some of these exam questions are reused. So that's a good way to prepare yourself. I think making mind maps is the best way to prepare yourself for the exam. So that was about taking notes from books. And now I'll say a bit about taking notes from lectures. Notes from lectures. First of all, it's wise to go to lectures, because the teachers will often help you find out what's the most important. You'll get different overviews and help with understanding. And the teachers will usually select what's the most important topics and talk about those. And often those are also the topics that are given to the exam. So it's wise to go to lectures to understand better what this course is about. It's also social and nice to meet your other students. And in the lectures, then you can ask questions, and will sometimes be discussions and so on. And that also makes it easier to understand what it's all about and easier to remember. Take notes from the lectures and rewrite afterwards. At least if you make ugly notes and half finished sentences, so that when you are finding your notes to prepare for the exam, if it just says, remember, it's very important to, and you haven't finished the sentence, then it doesn't help you very much. But if you rewrite it after the lecture, you can write it, then you remember what was supposed to stand in that sentence, so you can finish the sentences, and you also get a repetition right after you've done it. So that's helpful also. Learn and use abbreviations. I abbreviated abbreviation. Not just the standard abbreviations, but you can, if it's words that you use often, it's good to learn yourself make your own abbreviations. I have plenty of abbreviations, which makes it very easy for me to take notes in lectures. For instance, if I write PB, that means Penberg, that's a theologian. Ecclesiology is just Eckel. Or if I am writing God, I just say G. No, I'm kidding. But you understand the point, that you make different abbreviations, which make it easier for you to take notes and to take notes fast. A bit more on going to lectures. Be prepared before the lectures. Read the curriculum that's assigned for that lecture. Then you'll get much more out of the lecture. And even if you don't have time to it, just at least skim through the book, take a look at the headlines and so on to get an impression about what it's about, and you'll get much more out of the lecture. And finally, make the teacher good. You can make the teacher and the lecture a lot better if you participate actively, ask questions, and so on. That will also engage the other students and the teacher, and the lecture will be better. So you can all contribute, not just put it all on the teacher, but participate yourself and contribute. So that's what I had to say about taking notes.